All right, close your eyes for a second. No, seriously, just picture this with me. It's a Tuesday, just a regular Tuesday. You're 45 years old. The kids are asleep, the house is quiet. You pour yourself a glass of wine, sit down at the kitchen table, and open your checkbook. And you write a check. $42,000. This is it. The last of your savings, the bottom of your emergency fund, and the tail end of a small inheritance your grandmother left you. You stare at the number. Your hand is literally shaking a little as you sign your name. But you know what? It feels incredible. You seal that envelope, drive it to the mailbox, drop it in, and just stand there in the driveway for a moment, breathing, because you did it. You actually did it. You just paid off your mortgage. Your house is yours, free and clear. No more payments, no more debt. The deed has your name on it and nobody else's. You go home, pour another glass of wine, and you sleep better than you have in years. Now, fast forward 6 months. You lose your job. The economy turns ugly. Your whole industry takes a hit. And suddenly, there's no paycheck coming in. You open your bank account, and it's empty because you sent every last dollar to the bank 6 months ago. You need to buy groceries. You need to pay the electric bill. Your car needs a $1,400 transmission repair, or you can't even get to job interviews. You look at the walls of your house. You know there's somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 of equity sitting in those walls. But you can't eat drywall. You can't pay the mechanic with a brick. So you go to the bank and ask for a home equity line of credit. And they look at you like you're out of your mind. We can't lend to you, they say. You don't have income. You are sitting inside a $500,000 pile of gold, and you are starving to death. That is the liquidity trap, and it ruins people every single year. Good, responsible, hardworking people who made what they thought was the safest decision of their financial life. They obsessed over being debt-free, and in doing so, they mathematically guaranteed their own fragility. They traded liquid, accessible cash for a gold star on a credit report, and in doing so, they lit hundreds of thousands of dollars of future wealth on fire. What is up, everybody? My name is Zach, and I spend an embarrassing amount of time thinking about the emotional lies that quietly destroy people's financial futures. If you are currently sending an extra $300, $500, or even $1,000 a month to your mortgage company because you want that feeling of freedom, this video is for you. If you've got a low interest rate but still feel this gnawing guilt every time you look at that balance, this video is definitely for you. Hit that subscribe button, drop a thumbs up if this helps you, because today we are going after one of the most sacred cows in all of personal finance. We are going to talk about why paying off your mortgage early is, in most cases, a mathematical disaster. We are going to break down something called dead equity. We are going to talk about inflation arbitrage. We are going to do the actual math, not the feelings-based math, the real math. And by the end of this, I think you're going to look at your mortgage in a completely different way. Let's go. Okay, so first, I want to acknowledge something. The desire to pay off your house is not stupid. It is completely understandable. It comes from a very human, very real place. It comes from fear. Specifically, it comes from a generational fear of debt that was baked into the American psyche during some very dark economic eras. Think about it. Our grandparents' generation lived through the Great Depression. They watched people lose everything because they owed money they couldn't pay back. Debt to that generation was literally an existential threat. And then in the late 1970s and 80s, mortgage rates climbed into the stratosphere. We're talking 14, 15, even 18% interest rates. If your mortgage rate was 16%, paying it off was absolutely the right call. That's a guaranteed 16% return on your money. That beats almost any investment you could possibly make. So the mantra, pay off all debt as fast as possible, was born out of real, mathematically sound reasoning for a specific era in a specific economic environment. But here's the problem. That era is gone. The math changed, but the emotional programming didn't. We are still running 1983 emotional software in a 2025 economic landscape, and that outdated programming is costing people a fortune. Here's a question I want you to sit with. If I told you about a savings account that paid you 3% annual interest, but had a massive penalty if you tried to withdraw the money early, and oh, by the way, you cannot access the funds if you lose your job, would you invest in that? No, obviously not. You'd say that's the worst savings account in the history of savings accounts. But that's exactly what you're doing when you aggressively pay down a low-interest mortgage. The return on investment of paying off debt is equal to the interest rate. If your mortgage is at 3.5%, your return on investment of extra payments is 3.5%. And the money is completely illiquid, meaning you cannot access it without selling the house or qualifying for a loan. You are voluntarily accepting a below-market, illiquid return because the word debt makes you uncomfortable. That's what I call the fear tax, and most people pay it for decades without realizing it. All right, let's get into the actual math. And I want to teach you a concept that the wealthy use constantly, but that most middle-class households have never heard of: arbitrage. Arbitrage at its simplest is making money from the spread between two interest rates. Let me show you how it works. Think about how a bank operates. A bank takes deposits from you, your savings account, and pays you, let's say, 0.5% interest. Then they turn around and lend that same money back out as mortgages at 6% interest. They keep the 5.5% spread. That is their entire business model. Borrow cheap, lend expensive, keep the difference. Now here's the mind-blowing part. You can do the exact same thing in reverse. If you have a mortgage at 4% and you can invest that same money in the stock market and earn 8% historically, the 4% spread is your profit. You are borrowing money at 4% and deploying it at 8%. That spread, compounded over decades, is an absolute fortune. Let me give you a concrete example. Let's say you have $100,000 in extra cash. You have two options. Option A, you pay down $100,000 of your mortgage that's sitting at 4% interest. Option B, you invest that $100,000 in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. With option A, you save $4,000 per year in interest. That's your return. With option B, at the market's historical 8% annual average return, you earn $8,000 in year one, and that number grows every year as your balance compounds. The difference in year one alone is $4,000, but we're not talking about year one. We're talking about 30 years of compounding. That $4,000 annual gap compounds into something staggering. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in net worth gone because you chose the emotional comfort of no debt over the mathematical reality of more money. When you pay off your mortgage early, you are firing your most productive employee. That employee's name is leverage. And leverage, when used responsibly with a fixed, low-interest loan, doesn't just work for you, it works for you around the clock, every single day, without a lunch break. By eliminating the mortgage, you're doing all the heavy lifting yourself, and you're doing it slower and for less money. I want to introduce you to a term that I think about a lot: dead equity. Dead equity is money that's trapped inside your home, technically yours on paper, but completely inaccessible in your daily financial life. It produces zero income. It generates zero cash flow. It just sits there in your walls doing absolutely nothing for you. Now, home equity is great in theory. Your house appreciates, the equity goes up, you feel wealthy. But here's the thing: appreciation happens whether you have a mortgage or not. The market doesn't care if you owe $200,000 on your house or zero. If your neighborhood appreciates by 5% this year, your house goes up 5% either way. So you get zero extra appreciation benefit from owning the house outright. The only difference is what you did with the money you used to pay down the mortgage. And this is where it gets real. Imagine two neighbors. We'll call them Mike and Sarah. They both own houses worth $600,000. Mike has aggressively paid down his mortgage and now owns the house free and clear. Sarah kept her mortgage and instead invested every extra dollar she had. One day, both of them lose their jobs. Same day, same economic event. Mike looks at his house, $600,000 in equity, but he can't access it. He goes to the bank, they say, sorry, no income, no home equity line of credit. He can't borrow against the house. He can't sell quickly with enormous transaction costs. He's got maybe 2 or 3 months of savings left, and then he's in serious trouble. Sarah, she's got her investment portfolio. She can literally sell a few shares and have cash in her account in 2 days. She can cover her mortgage payment for 5, 6, 7 years using her liquid assets if she had to. Who is safer? Not the person with the paid off house. The person with the cash is safer. The person with options is safer. And here's the brutal kicker that almost nobody talks about when it comes to debt. Even if you have a fully paid off house, you still owe property taxes, you still owe insurance, you still have maintenance costs. If you can't pay your property taxes because you're broke, the county will take your house. You can lose a paid off house to a tax lien. The bank doesn't have to foreclose, the government just takes it. So this idea that a paid off house equals security is a myth. Cash is security. Liquidity is security. A paid-off house is a beautiful, illiquid asset that cannot feed you and cannot protect you from a financial emergency. Okay, so I want to talk about something that most people never think about when it comes to debt. Inflation, and specifically how inflation is your absolute best friend when you're a long-term, fixed-rate mortgage holder. Here's a fact. Inflation is the enemy of savers and the best friend of debtors. Let me show you why. When you take out a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage in 2025, you lock in your principal and interest payment. Let's say it's $2,000 a month. That number does not change for 30 years. It is fixed. It is immovable. Now, inflation runs roughly 3% per year on average historically. Over time, that $2,000 payment shrinks in real-world purchasing power. By 2045, 20 years from now, due to compounding inflation, $2,000 will have the purchasing power of roughly $1,100 in today's money. By 2055, you're paying off your mortgage with dollars that are worth about half of what they were in 2025. Meanwhile, your income has probably doubled or tripled in that same time frame. What was 25% of your income in 2025 might be 10% of your income in 2045. Same payment, smaller slice of your budget every year. You borrowed expensive, valuable 2025 dollars from the bank, and you're going to pay them back with cheap, devalued future dollars. The bank made a bad deal. You made a great one. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When you pay off your mortgage early, you destroy this advantage completely. You're taking today's valuable dollars with maximum purchasing power, and handing them back to the bank. You're genuinely giving the bank a gift they don't deserve. The rational move, the move that makes mathematical sense, is to drag that 30-year mortgage out as long as humanly possible. Let inflation chip away at the real value of that debt every single year. Let the dollar's declining purchasing power do the work for you. Your mortgage literally becomes cheaper every year without you doing a single thing. That is a financial superpower. And every time you make an extra principal payment, you're choosing to throw that superpower away. All right, this is the section I'm most excited about because I'm going to show you a number that is going to make some of you physically uncomfortable. Let's model out 2 real scenarios side by side. Scenario A, the person who pays off the mortgage. You have a $2,000 base mortgage payment. You aggressively add an extra $1,000 a month on top of that. You feel great about it. You pay off your 30-year mortgage in about 15 years, no more debt. Scenario B, the person who keeps the mortgage and invests. You make your regular $2,000 mortgage payment every month. Instead of sending that extra $1,000 to the bank, you open a brokerage account and invest it in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund every single month. Automatic draft, no exceptions. Let's run the math. At year 15, Scenario B has approximately $400,000 in their investment account. Scenario A just paid off the house and has 0 savings outside of it. So far, Scenario A might feel smarter. They own their house. But here's where the magic happens. Scenario A now has no mortgage payment. What do most people do with that freed up cash? Statistically, they lifestyle creep it. They absorb it. They start spending more because there's more room in the budget. Maybe some of them start investing, but most don't, at least not consistently. Scenario B, they keep investing. They keep that $1,000 going every month for another 15 years. At year 30, Scenario B has an investment portfolio approaching $2 million. Their house has also appreciated over those 30 years, let's say $800,000. Their total net worth, nearly $2.8 million. Scenario A, their paid-off house is worth $800,000, but with minimal consistent investing, their investment account might be $200,000 to $300,000 on a good day. Total net worth, maybe $1.1 million. The gap in net worth over $1 million. $1 million. That is the price of paying off your mortgage early. That is the cost of your peace of mind. It is a very, very expensive emotional luxury. And I'm not picking on people who do this. I genuinely understand the impulse, but I need you to know what that decision actually costs because most people have absolutely no idea. Here's something that almost never gets talked about when it comes to having a fully paid off home. Having a fully paid off home can actually make you more attractive to lawsuits. Think about it from a plaintiff attorney's perspective. If you get sued, a car accident, a slip and fall on your property, a business dispute, whatever, and you have $500,000 in equity sitting in your home, that's a juicy asset. A judgment creditor can potentially go after that equity. But if you owe $400,000 on that same house, the bank is first in line. There's barely any equity for anyone to come after. You look poor on paper. And looking poor on paper is one of the underrated forms of asset protection available to regular people. Now, every state has different homestead exemption laws, so the specifics vary. Talk to an asset protection attorney about your situation. But the general principle holds. Leveraged assets are less attractive targets than fully owned ones. While your real wealth quietly grows in a brokerage account, your home looks like it's barely worth going after. That's a strategic financial position, not an accident. Okay, I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now, and I want to address it directly instead of pretending the counterarguments don't exist. Counterargument number one. But Zach, what if the market crashes? Valid concern. Markets do crash. But here's the thing. In the investing scenario, you have built up a massive pool of liquid capital. If the market drops 40%, your account drops, but it doesn't disappear. You still have principal. Markets historically recover. And while you're waiting, you can use your liquid assets to cover your mortgage payments. The person with the paid off house, they have zero flexibility. Also, real estate crashes too. Home values went down 30 to 40% in some markets during 2008. A paid-off house doesn't protect you from a housing market collapse. Counterargument number two. What if I retire and can't make the payment? This one is actually easy. If you've been investing consistently instead of paying down the mortgage, you have a portfolio. That portfolio generates dividends and can be drawn down. If you have $500,000 invested earning just 4% in dividends, that's $20,000 a year, enough to cover most mortgage payments on its own. Your investment income pays your mortgage. You have created a synthetic payoff, all the mathematical benefits of owning without giving up control of the principal. Counterargument number three. I just hate having debt. I'll sleep better without it. And this is where I have to be honest with you. That is a completely legitimate personal value. Seriously, if having zero debt is important to your mental health and quality of life, and that peace of mind is worth $1 million to you, then pay off the mortgage. Financial decisions aren't purely mathematical. They're personal. But, and this is a big but, you should make that choice with full awareness of what it's costing you. Don't let someone tell you paying off your mortgage is the smart move without doing the math. Know the cost. Make an informed choice. That's the goal of this channel. Look, I'm not here to tell you there's never a situation where paying off your mortgage makes sense. That would be intellectually dishonest, and I'm not going to do that to you. Here are the specific scenarios where paying off your mortgage early actually is the right mathematical call. Number one, your interest rate is high. If you locked in a mortgage at 8%, 9%, or above, and your realistic investment return is around 7 to 8%, the spread disappears. In a high-rate environment, paying down debt is a competitive return. Do the math for your specific rate. Number 2, you have no investment discipline whatsoever. If you are being truly honest with yourself and you know that if you don't pay the mortgage aggressively, that money will disappear into lifestyle spending, vacations, and random purchases, then the mortgage acts as a forced savings mechanism. It is not optimal, but it is better than nothing. Number 3, you are genuinely close to retirement. You have already maxed out your investments and you want to eliminate the monthly payment obligation for peace of mind. In this specific scenario, the psychological benefit has some legitimate financial logic behind it. Outside of these scenarios, the math almost universally favors investing over paying off a low interest mortgage. I want to get a little philosophical for a second before we wrap up. The reason this conversation is so hard for people isn't really about math. It's about identity. It's about how we've been taught to see ourselves in relation to debt. For the middle class, debt is a moral failing. We're taught to be ashamed of it, to rush to zero, to treat elimination of debt as a virtue in itself, regardless of the math behind it. But look at how rich people, corporations, and governments use debt. Apple, one of the most valuable companies in history, routinely carries billions of dollars in debt, not because they're struggling, but because borrowing at 3% to deploy capital at 12% is smart math. The rich aren't ashamed of debt. They use it. They treat it like a tool, like a shovel that helps them dig faster. The concept you need to internalize is this: zero is not safe. Zero leverage means zero amplification. Zero liquidity means zero options. Zero is actually one of the most fragile financial positions you can be in, because if anything goes wrong, you have no buffer, no flexibility, and no army of liquid assets to deploy. A paid-off house is a beautiful trophy. It looks great. It feels amazing. But a massive, diversified investment portfolio is an army that works for you every single day, an army that can defend you against any crisis, any job loss, any emergency. I would rather have the army. Okay, enough philosophy. Here's exactly what I want you to do after you close this video. Step 1, stop the extra payments. If you are currently sending extra principal payments to your mortgage company every month, stop. Just make your regular payment. Step 2, open a brokerage account. If you don't have one, go open one today. It takes about 15 minutes. Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, pick one, doesn't matter. Step 3, name it your freedom fund. Seriously, give it a purpose. Put it right there in the account nickname: Freedom Fund, Future Wealth, whatever gets you emotionally connected to it. Step 4, set up an automatic draft for the exact same amount you were sending to the mortgage. If you were paying an extra $500 a month toward principal, set up an auto investment of $500 per month into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. Step 5, set a calendar reminder for 12 months from today. Open that account. Look at the balance. Compare it to the interest you would have saved by paying down the mortgage. The math will be visible. It will be real. And you will see with your own eyes that you are richer. And the most important thing is, if you have an emergency tomorrow, a job loss, a medical bill, a car repair, you can access that money. You cannot access the extra payment you made to the bank 6 months ago. That money is gone, trapped, inaccessible. Build the army. Protect yourself with liquidity, and stop optimizing for a feeling when you could be optimizing for actual generational wealth. All right, that's a wrap on today's video. We covered the liquidity trap and why dead equity is silently sabotaging people. We broke down interest rate arbitrage and how the math overwhelmingly favors investing over paying down low-rate debt. We looked at how inflation is secretly your greatest ally as a long-term debtor. We simulated the real opportunity cost, which in many scenarios is well over $1 million. And we gave you a clear, actionable 5-step plan you can start implementing this week. Look, if this video made you think twice about that extra principal payment you've been making every month, do me a favor. Share it with one person in your life who is obsessed with being debt-free. Not to argue with them, just to help them see the math. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't to be debt-free. The goal is to be wealthy. Those are not the same thing. A paid-off house is a trophy. $1 million investment portfolio is an army. Build the army. I'm Zach. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.